Hey, welcome to Gold's Garage. So what we got for you today is a real nice 355 Chevy engine that I built on spec that would work well in almost anything from a Corvette to a pickup truck. And we're going to tell you all the details of it. One of the features is that we are trying out a Summit 1105 camshaft in this engine for the first time. And what we like about it is this. It's 466, 487 lift with 1.5 rockers. And this Saturday, which is the 8th of June, we're going to dyno it. And when we do, we're going to do an experiment with, I'm going to make one run with 1.5 rockers. Then I'm going to make another run with 1.6 rockers on the intake. And then we're going to put 1.6 rockers on the exhaust. We did a similar thing in the past, and we only got to the 1.5 on the intake. We didn't do the exhaust, and I got lots of comments saying you should have done the exhaust too. So we will catch that this time. Before I forget, please like and subscribe to Gold's Garage. We got lots of good stuff coming up. But we'll talk more about this 350. It's been the subject of previous videos. I originally bought this short block from another shop, and I took it all apart. And because I had to put my name on it, so I had to know what's going on inside. Good thing I did. It had pretty tight clearances on the rods and mains, and we actually made a video on that subject alone. And I've got another video coming up explaining how bearing tolerances are used in industry or in assembly line manufacturing, so that those assembling engines don't have to measure anything. As you know, when we blueprint, we measure, record, document everything. We'll put a screenshot of those measurements up. But in industry, they don't do that. So I got a video showing how they accomplish that. So what we did is, this engine's got brand new forged pistons. Crank's been turned 10 thou. It's been bored 30 thou. Fresh bore, fresh rings. Everything's new in it. And when I put it back together, we checked initially, we had pretty tight bearing clearances, so I bought undersized bearing, even though it's 10 under, so you buy a 9 thou undersized bearing. And I got all the bearing clearances, rods and mains between 2 and 3 thousandths of an inch. So ideally we talk about 1 thou per inch of diameter, and so the rods are 2.1 and the mains are 2.45, so we're right on the money for all the bearing clearances. Really happy with that. We'll put a screenshot up of the results that we got. So what's going on in this engine? I mentioned the forged pistons. We have about 10.7 to 1 calculated compression ratio, but I did a compression check just yesterday on this engine. The camshaft's already broken in. We've run this engine more than a half an hour now. So when I go to the dyno, it's ready to start and run, and the cam's broken in. Everything's tight on it, no leaks or anything to deal with. In that process, I'm breaking in the cam. When I'm all done, before we go to the dyno, one more exchange of oil, one more oil filter, and it's ready to run and fire. So the rest of the details of the engine, brand new. It's my standard one wire HEI type distributor. This is a 65,000 volt, 7,500 RPM, more distributor than you need for this engine anyway. A brand new Weiand Warrior, Street Warrior intake manifold. It's got a deep sump oil pan on it. So, oops, sorry. I have 5 quarts of oil in it, and what that does is gets that oil an inch lower from the crankshaft than standard, and that is almost give you the effect of a windage tray and the distributor. So ProMaxx, brand new aluminum, of course, ProMaxx heads, and set up for flat tappet camshaft. This is a flat tappet camshaft. These 4 ProMaxx heads are assembled in the USA. The carburetor, by the way, is just one of my shop carburetors. The engine doesn't come with a carburetor. If somebody wants one, we'll give you a custom carburetor. On the dyno, when we go to the dyno, as a follow-up from the previous video we just did with Bill Little, lots of interest in quadrajet carburetors. So we're going to do some dyno tests comparing Holley and quadrajet carburetors of the same size on the dyno, and you can see the results. We have done some of that in the past, although we didn't maybe document it. And you're going to be surprised to see how well a Quadrajet does against a Holly. So based on the comments that Bill made, there's lots of interest in Quadrajet carburetors. So this engine comes complete. It'll come off the dyno. If anybody's interested, with today, Tuesday, dyno was Saturday, get a hold of me. You can come to the dyno and be part of the process if you're interested in the engine. It comes complete without the carburetor and accessories like the starter, for example. The ignition stays on, plug wires stay on, plugs stay in, all that kind of stuff. Pretty much a complete engine. So let's go ahead and fire it up and see how it sounds. And keep in mind, I just use like slip-on mufflers, so I can take these mufflers off in a couple of seconds. So that they do leak a little bit. So as you can see, idles nicely at something around 600 or 700 RPM. We did do a vacuum check, and we're in the green, which is something like 19 or 20 inches of vacuum on the engine, and we can demonstrate that, of course, on the test stand, or we can demonstrate it on the dyno as well. I have checked the valves a couple times, no issues. I never had to adjust anything. And once again, we will dyno this engine with the 1.5 rockers and 1.6 rockers on Saturday. So watch for that video. And one more thing I got to bring up while we're talking about it. We've talked about Tony Guzzo's 302, and we are waiting on Bill Little to get back from his vacation to flow the heads. And we threw out there looking for suggestions for camshafts. And man, I got to tell you, this is one of the comments. One of the readers said, it's reading your comments is like going to cam school. I mean, there's so many guys out there that have a deep, intense knowledge of camshafts that wade in with tons of technical details and analytics and information that helps everybody that's reading understand cams. And it's going to help us make the decision. And we have another process coming up, decision-making process, that when you go to make a major decision like that, there's so many things to consider. Drivability, is it going to sound the same? Is it going to be original? How much power is it going to make? How much vacuum is it going to have? All that kind of stuff. So I have a process that helps us organize our thoughts. Watch for that. We'll make a separate video on that one of these days. And so I have to show you something. We are stuck on something with Tony's engine. I'm going to bring you in the shop here just to show you what we're talking about. So Tony has, this is Tony's 302, and the short blocks all together. I think we have talked about that before. And we are waiting for, normally, once again, somebody commented, put the cam in first. I like to do that, but I have all the parts for the short block. It's already balanced. It's ready to rock and roll. So I put the short block together because I had time and had all the parts. I get all the parts. I like to get them in an engine, keep them organized. So we need to flow the heads and help us pick the camshaft and take into consideration all the great information that we got. One of the things we run into, Tony has a windage tray. All 302s, that 28 inches came with a factory windage tray. And that is the bolt that holds the windage tray. It sits in like that, and then the windage tray bolts on the bottom of it. Unfortunately, the ones that Tony had are not correct. They're too long. So if you go back to our little demo here that we put on the bench, the length of the bolt, this is a bolt out of the engine, should be 3 inches, and the length of the bolt that Tony had to the hex part is 3.5 inches. So I need windage tray bolts that look like this, but this part of the bolt is 3 inches long. If anybody knows where we can find some, that would be nice, because that's kind of got us in a stall right now. Now, we can't finish it anyway for reasons that I already mentioned, but Tony's trying to do this completely, totally original and correct as possible, and the windage tray is a must for a 302. So we've got to get this, we've got to find some right parts so we can figure that out and do it right. Okay, tip of the day, something I just thought of today, because when I start up a new engine, I've got the plugs to go in there, Champion RC12YC plugs, is the plugs that are specified, by the ProMaxx manufacturer. And that's a pretty common plug for an aluminum head. It's a 3/4 length plug with a gasket, and you got to get that right. Anyway, I always have shop plugs. I started it up on shop plugs before we go to the dyno. I put new plugs in it. If you're putting a spark plug in an aluminum head engine and it's going to be in there for a long time, make sure you put never seize on the threads. I've seen more than one case. I store engines, steel plugs, of course. The steel and the aluminum chemically bond to each other, and sometimes you cannot get those plugs out without damaging the spark plug threads. So you don't want to ruin a nice set of heads over something like that. Always, unless you're having your plugs coming in and out frequently, put never seize on them, and you won't have to worry about that problem. So that kind of wraps up this video. Watch for the next video on the dyno. We're going to do the 1.5, 1.6 rockers. If we get it organized, we might try the quadrajet carburetor setup on this deal as well, but we will definitely do that in a future video. And I want to thank you again for watching Gold's Garage.